welcome to my show, Pathways of the Dream Lodge Cafe. And today I have two wonderful young women from the Shinnecock and Hassanamismo tribes. What we want to do today is dispel some of the ugly myths about Native Americans. What you probably don't know or realize is that the Shinnecock Nation is on Long Island. It is the home of the Hamptons. They have taken the land from the Shinnecock Nation. And so what we want to do is tell you a little bit about the Shinnecocks first. My guests are Kelly Dennis and Tila Trudge. So, ladies, welcome. I'm so glad you could come. So, could you please tell us a little bit about your nation?
Well, first we want to thank you, Tabutne in our language, from Algonquin language, for having us here. And hello, Akwe. Yes, we are from the Shinnecock Indian Nation in New York, as well as the Hassanamisco Indian Nation, a Nipmuc band in Grafton, Massachusetts. And we are both attorneys, actually, first in our family to go to law school and graduate and pass the bar in New York, which is pretty amazing. So we've upon graduation and passing the bar, been trying to help out our tribe in several different ways, and one of them was with the Supreme Court, getting our land claim heard. We didn't quite get all the way, but we did at least put in a petition for a writ of certiorari, which was read and considered, and we worked on that with the Native American Rights Fund, NARF.
That sounds wonderful. I'm glad that you're getting some sort of representation and people are finally hearing you. Do you think that Obama's influence helped a little, or
what do you think,
is it just
Tila?
about time? What do you think, Tila?
Oh yes, we're very thankful for President Obama. Under his administration, we actually received our federal recognition. We were in a court battle for over 32 years, just trying to obtain this recognition by the United States government, and it was President Obama who finally extended the olive branch and formally recognized the relationship with our tribe and the United States government. So we're hoping that the next administration continues helping us with our quest to regain some of our ancestral land and territory.
And that was actually, in October of 2010 that we got federally recognized, so we're coming up on our 6th anniversary of recognition now.
Could you tell the audience the difference, maybe just a little bit about the difference between being state recognized and being federally recognized? What are the advantages or disadvantages, or?
Well, under state recognition, the New York State has basically taken us on and provided us some services, helped with, making sure that we do at least have a little bit of a land base left, and that's what we own in fee as a nation. And we do get some services from the state. Just when we were recognized, they'd help us with health, just as, some kind of recompense from taking all of the land and really putting us at a very bad disadvantage of where we are. But with federal recognition, we have so many different opportunities where we still have to come together as a nation and decide how to move forward, but we have that recognized government-to-government relationship. And with that, there are certain sovereign powers that come in more so where basically you can get more into different services, whether it be for health or environment, and also getting into different commercial enterprises and economic development.
There's actually some Christian Indians who decided that they didn't want to remain on the East Coast they were trying to save their culture by going west, so they ended up in Wisconsin. They're known now as the Brothertown Indians.
Oh, that's great. Are you all still in contact, or do you like go to visit, or they come? The only reason I asked that is because I was at Skimitzen, you know, with the Pequots. It's a large powwow. If you all don't know what powwows are, these are native festivals that happen starting maybe in May and go to October, and it's like a big block party, but it's all native, and we have dancing, we have food, we have everything. And at this, because a lot of people don't know about Indian slavery, and a lot of the East Coast people were taken to the islands, to the Caribbean. And some of the East Coast nations, Narragansetts, Pequots, and Wampanoags, have been in contact with some of the people from Bermuda. And they brought them up to Skimitzen, and they danced, and you know, it was really wonderful to see that they still have this connection.
And we still have our annual powwow where
Yes.
we always invite everyone out, and we'll have family reunions, and people from Brotherton will come. I'm sure I haven't personally, I don't know about Tila, but gone out to, you know, out west, more so into Pennsylvania and other areas. Maybe my brother has, and met with some Brotherton people, but we try to keep the connection open. We have several different connections across the water with Narragansett and
Yes.
Pequot and Wampanoag and all kinds of intertwined family relationships.
Yeah, intermarriages and everything, you know. That's what I found that was really wonderful, you know, all up and down the East Coast. Because a lot of people don't know about East Coast Indians. That's one of the reasons I wanted you all to come on today and talk about what you do. And something very important happened in the 90s for the women in your nation. Could you tell us a little bit about that? Would you like to start, Tila?
Sure. So originally our culture was matrilineal, so women had a lot of the power and kind of made a lot of the decisions. And one of the ways we lost our land was that the Europeans came in and they forced our tribe to adopt their ways, and they put the men in charge when they had never been in that leadership role before. So starting in 1792, the New York state government made sure that women had no voice in the government of the tribe any longer. And it wasn't until 1992 that women regained the right to vote in tribal elections and even to speak at tribal meetings. It was about 200 years that women, you know, were put on the sidelines. Recently, we just got our first 2 women trustees. We adopted a new constitution, our first written constitution, and we're progressing towards the future.
Right.
That's fabulous, because what people don't realize is that they talk about women's suffrage. These women, Susan B. Anthony and others, were influenced by the Haudenosaunee people from upstate New York because they lived there. And they were just amazed because European women had no rights. The men could do anything they wanted. I was shocked when I found that out. The men could do anything they wanted to them and their children. And so being around Native women and seeing what they thought was power, they were astonished. But it was just a way of life. It isn't about power or anything. Women give birth. So they have a right to say, well, what's going to happen with their children? I mean, the European way is entirely different. And so I wanted to know, what led you two ladies to become lawyers? Tribal lawyers.
Well, you know, I think our whole family is just very active politically and socially within our tribes, and our mothers were very strong influences in our lives and very powerful. in just their presence among the tribe and everything that they get into. Tila's mom was helping with the shellfish hatchery and the Rhode Island Indian Council. She's the director there. She had also serves on the economic development, Shinnecock Sovereign Holdings, as the director. My mother's been in education for the last 21 years, just retired, and she's always given different cultural lessons within the tribe, whether it's beadwork or dancing, singing. She's always tried to keep the culture alive. And for a time, my father was trustee of the Shinnecock Nation before women got the right to speak. And my mother was right in the background trying to make sure that women would get the right to speak and vote that entire time. And what happened was amazing under their leadership, really, because it really was my dad who's great, and everyone in the tribe respects him, and my mother. And not only were they able to accomplish that, but also get a health center for our tribe and a playground going. And we had an okay playground growing up, but it was like all rusted and everything, and they got in a safer one. and the health center, I don't know where we'd be without the health center today. So.
And with the federal recognition, it gives you more power or more money in the health center and economically, or?
It gives an opportunity to maybe form partnerships with the IHS, the Indian Health Service, federal programs, wherever state programs might be lacking.
Tila, your specialty is education. Could you tell us a little bit? I remember years ago I was involved with Title IV, and now they've changed the title names to maybe Title VI, or they keep changing them, but at least they still exist to a degree.
Sure. So one of my focuses is on helping Native children in the public school system, just because we do come from a different culture and we do have different needs. And we want to make sure that our children are receiving the best education possible. So we just are helping students in need who may not be receiving appropriate services, or we had one student who was told, he wasn't Native American, that Native Americans don't exist, and that he shouldn't have long hair and he shouldn't go to powwows. So unfortunately, our children have to face
that hurts.
Yeah,
that hurts.
Our children are facing these issues, and they might not have the coping mechanisms. And just growing up as a Native person, you kind of become used to so many injustices. Throughout Shinnecock's history, it was just one injustice after another, between our land being lost, our economy being destroyed, our language being taken. And so that's another reason that Kelly and I chose to go to law school and become lawyers.
So your culture is, a lot of it was around whaling and fishery and things of that sort, and that's a wonderful history in itself. What about the Child Welfare Act? I remember everyone was up in arms within the last, year or two about baby Veronica that was taken from her father. Could you give us a little bit of information on that, or if it still exists? I don't understand why they were allowed to take her.
Sure. There's a very unfortunate decision that came out of the Supreme Court that it basically misconstrued the principle of who is Indian and who isn't Indian. And, it's really a cultural thing. If you're a part of your tribe, you're a part of your tribe. And the court took it in a different direction, and they broke it down into the amount of Indian blood that they thought baby Veronica had, and they used that basis to basically remove her from her culture and from her family. But the Indian Child Welfare Act is an important piece of legislation that protects Indian children, and it kind of promotes, every effort has to be made to keep a child within its native community, and to ensure that the child grows up in their culture, so that culture is not lost.
Yeah, we've had cases within our own tribe actually where there was an adoption issue happening, and we were actually successful in getting visitation from extended family, they like to call it, and so it's always like a process because there's mechanisms built into the Indian Child Welfare Act, understanding that this other family may have a connection or built a connection, but still there needs to be an appropriate, not just off the sleeve, like, oh, we can take this child to like a Cherokee thing or something. Like, no, it has to be their actual tribal experience, and you have to teach them about their culture. Because otherwise, there are so many children from back in the 1800s and before that, maybe even 1900s actually, who were sent to boarding schools, taken away from their families. And so everything is really that Tila and I are kind of confronting that historical trauma that really has kind of put our tribe and others into a spiral of just not getting things done, kind of unfortunate areas of corruption internally, and just not being able to focus and get yourself together so we can deal with these problems and move on with the outside world as well in an appropriate way. And there's so many different issues that go into that. Environmentally is one of the things that we are working on as well. We have issues around our water. We're on a peninsula, the reservation that we got moved to, and unfortunately there used to be an oyster project, an oyster hatchery, but with the red tide and the brown tide, it's been very difficult to be able to have successful hatchlings and go forward with that mode of economic development, which is upsetting. And another issue is just with the superstorms, with Sandy and the hurricanes that come in, and what is that doing to what's left of our tribal land that we are allowed to build homes on, and the erosion that's happening. I mean, we have traditional ways of dealing with that, with eelgrass and seaweed, but our original territory was more in the Shinnecock Hills and on the other side at good ground, and it was called that for a reason because it didn't flood as much over there, and we could actually plant and have harvest and get our timber and everything. So.
And that is that where the Shinnecock golf course is? Is that part of?
Yep.
How many acres do you still have?
I believe 800. There's I think about around 800 on I think 840 on the neck, the Shinnecock neck, and then another 80 acres at Westwoods.
Yes, let's talk about Westwoods, because there seems to be a constant fight. I mean, I've been there and it's so beautiful, but the neighbors seem to think it belongs to them, and they're taking it a little bit at a time. And so is there anything we could do? Can we write letters, or what can we do to help in your fight to regain your land or keep them from encroaching, which is what they do? I know your aunt Doreen was in a demonstration, her and Becky, about them taking more of the land. And so is there anything you think we could do to help, or?
Well, one of our main problems with Westwoods is that, again, there is this encroachment by the neighbors, whether it's a fence or an extension of their yard, or just them not thinking that's just vacant land. They're building structures, and one of the things that we desperately need is a survey. Unfortunately, those cost a couple of $1,000s, which the tribe doesn't have, but a survey would go to show what our original boundary was. And then another issue is we had a court case, and the judge, he ruled that, you know, we had to follow building codes of the state and local government because they did a title search, and the title search didn't come up with any source of title. But if you look at our other land, the source of title is in the original land patents. And when you look at the original land patents, especially the first Indian deed, you can clearly see at the end of the document that we reserved rights to a woodland west of the what is now the Shinnecock Canal. It used to be a small creek. Some of the hurricanes that Kelly was speaking about earlier, and some man-made efforts kind of made that into the canal that we know now. But that land was specifically preserved for us in a land patent known as the first Indian deed. So just getting a court to acknowledge that would go a long way to help us in our pursuit for sovereignty over our ancestral territory.
Okay, you other lawyers out there, we need you to help us all form together.
Yes.
Well, I want to thank my guests, Kelly Dennis and Tila Troge, and we're going to continue with another part because this is so much. I want to know about the woman who's being nominated for the Supreme Court, a Hopi woman, Ms. Humatiwa, and we'll talk about that on our next show. Again, this is Candice Tarpley at Pathways to the Dream Lodge Cafe. I hope you enjoyed our show. Please come again.